Moving on to the next slide, when designing a program evaluation, critically assess the program structure and circumstances under which the evaluation is taking place. You've got to understand, you've got to have a very clear and precise understanding of the lay of the land. You've got to understand every nuance of the program you're evaluating, whether it be an existing program or one that is starting from scratch. You need to understand how people are recruited for the program, how they're brought into the program, the process by which they partake in the program, what some of the measures are, what some of the program components are. Is it group therapy? Is it individual therapy? Is it, do they do written questionnaires? Do they watch videos? All those different kinds of things. You need to understand the program design from the ground up. Of course, that requires identifying the stage of program development, where it is. Is it early on? Has it been 6 months since the program started? Has the program been around for 10 years? Is it brand new and going to start soon? You've got to use all of those pieces of information to be able to gauge how you're going to set up your specific evaluation. You want to determine the administrative political context of the program. You want to kind of understand where in the whole scheme of things this program sits. If this drug treatment program is being sponsored or being promoted by a judge, what relationship does the judge have to the program? What investment, monetary or otherwise, does the judge have in the program? What's the political context? Is drug treatment the new, is that the concern of your the major concern of your jurisdiction? Or what? So you've really got to understand the administrative and political context of the program under which it's being run. You've also got to understand the conceptual or organizational structure of the program, and again, that kind of goes back to number one there, where you're assessing program structure, but more from an organizational standpoint. Specifically, how is the hierarchy of this particular program organized? Is there a program director? Are there assistant or associate directors? How many layers of hierarchy are there? Who are the decision makers? Who are the doers and who are the idea makers? So you kind of have to have a good handle on that. And then you need to really be able to identify the resources available for the evaluation. That is, how much money is available, how much human resource access will you have, how much access to data will you have. Will you have an office in the program where you're able to kind of come and go as you please? Will you be able to sit in on, say, group therapy sessions for drug treatment, or is all the information you're going to get from survey instruments? All those kinds of things have to be considered when or identified when you're looking to begin an evaluation. Moving on, when designing a program evaluation, you've got to be able to identify and understand the nature of the evaluator-stakeholder relationship. I cannot underscore the importance of this. Most times, in most cases, evaluators are coming from the outside. They may be coming from a university, they may be coming from another department, but they're usually not coming from the place that is actually running the program. So you already have a level of distrust that has sort of developed between, what's the outsider want? What are they looking to do? Are they looking to shut us down? Are they looking to, subvert us in some way? So you have a real level of distrust that, right, wrong, or indifferent, is there and has got to be addressed. Stakeholders. Who are stakeholders? Well, stakeholders are all of the people that are involved in the program evaluation, from the evaluator to the program director to the clients that the program serves. If we're continuing with our drug treatment program example, it could be the judge who is sponsoring this program as part of their specialty court. It could be probation, it could be parole, it could be defense attorneys, it could be prosecutors, it could be public defenders, it could be the general public, and the beat goes on. So stakeholders are all the people in the pie or in the pot who have some sort of investment, either direct investment or indirect investment in whether or not this program works, whether it continues, or whether it starts in the first place. So you always have to be cognizant of what stakeholders want. What is their, first of all, identify what their investment is, and then identify what they want out of the evaluation. And once you start going around the table and asking people what it is they want and what it is they hope to gain out of what it is you're doing, you're going to figure out really quickly that everybody has a different motive. Everybody has a different end game. And you, as the program evaluator, are going to have to be the one that can reconcile all of that. So in addition to knowing what they want, you need to know what you want out of it as the program evaluator. Again, are you looking for outcomes? Are you looking for a cost effectiveness? Are you looking for, any number of things? So you have to be able to establish what the stakeholders want, and you have to be able to identify for yourself what you want. And then finally, when you're designing a program evaluation, you've got to consider whether your evaluation is an independent or a participatory collaborative evaluation. And quite frankly, most evaluations, as I've said before, do not occur in a vacuum. They can be independent, but they usually require the help of others. And so 9 times out of 10, any evaluation that you would conduct or think about conducting would be participatory in the sense that you'd probably interview people who take part in the drug treatment program, both the providers and both the clients. You probably need to gain or obtain data from people in the program who actually collect it. So, I mean, it is a rare instance where a program evaluation is going to be completely and fully independent. Let's take a minute or two to talk about the different types of program evaluations that there are. Again, this goes back to what I talked about earlier in the lecture when I was talking about you being able to identify why you're doing an evaluation. You also need to understand the different types of evaluations, because why you're doing an evaluation will drive what type of evaluation you do. First, let's talk a little bit about needs assessments. Is there a need for the program that you're evaluating? Again, going back to our drug treatment program example, is this a new program? And if so, how many other programs exist? Is this one now of 100 drug treatment programs, or is this a new, exciting, new model of a program that's coming out that will be different than all the others? Okay, so one type of evaluation is a needs assessment, determining the need for the program you're wishing to evaluate. Next type of evaluation is an assessment of program theory. In other words, does the program reflect valid assumptions about the nature of the problem, and is it a feasible approach to solving it? So, again, drug treatment program. Is the program that you're studying, is the theory or the research that supports the kind of program that you're doing, supports drug treatment and how we, what the standard of practice or standard of care is associated with drug treatment, are the reasons behind that valid? Is the theory behind the program valid? Assessment of program process. Can the program actually improve the problem under study, given the way the program is designed? Well, if you have a drug treatment program, one would like to think that if somebody comes in with a problem once they leave, or at the time that they do leave, that hopefully we've been able to address or mitigate that problem in some way. So is the program actually improving the drug issues that are under study or that are of concern? Another type of evaluation is an impact assessment. Does the program improve the problem in question? Again, sort of similar to the last one, but does your program have a positive impact? Are people who are coming in with drug problems leaving your drug program with either fewer problems or no problems? And that's really you're addressing the impact of your program to make a difference in this case, drug treatment. And then, of course, we're looking at efficiency assessment. What does the program cost, and is this expense an effective use of resources? If your drug treatment program costs more than it does to incarcerate someone, I can guarantee you no one will support your program, no one will pay for your program will tank. So your program has to be cost efficient, and the outcomes essentially have to support what it is you're trying to do. So one has to price their programs or price the cost of their programs accordingly, providing a high level of service. And sometimes these two things are antithetical. I mean, sometimes it costs a lot of money to provide a good quality service program. But I'm telling you right now, if it's easier to incarcerate somebody than it is to put somebody in an outpatient drug treatment program, a judge will do that all day long. So what does the program cost, and is this expense an effective use of the resources that you have? What is essentially the return on your investment? So as you can see in this slide here, it's really a pyramid, and we're looking at the types of evaluations a little bit differently, more visually here. And I did this just so that you could get an idea for what the building blocks are of program evaluation. As you can see, program need forms the foundation of this pyramid. If you can't establish or determine the need for a program, then that program probably shouldn't be running. I love to use, with my undergrads, I love to use the example of the DARE program, which everybody remembers came out of the War on Drugs, Just Say No, Nancy Reagan, sort of 1980s. And the whole idea was that police officers would go into elementary, middle, and high schools at different points in time and would talk about how kids just needed to say no to drugs. Well, empirical studies have been done and published in medical journals which show that people who went through DARE were no less likely to use drugs than people who didn't. So one has to scratch their head and wonder why we continue to pour millions and millions of dollars into a program like DARE when in fact it doesn't work. So what's the need for DARE? Well, the need for DARE has less to do with the actual effectiveness of the program than it's a feel-good thing for parents and superintendents and police officers. It makes them feel good, like they've done the right thing. So I point that out to you. Just if you can't establish a firm need for your program, then you probably don't need it. Then if you look again, as you move up the pyramid, you've got program design and theory, program process and implementation, program outcome and impact, and then of course at the top is program cost effectiveness. Now it may form the top of the pyramid, but some people would argue this may be really sort of where the rubber meets the road, because if, again, as I said earlier, if the program is not cost effective, you're going to be hard pressed to get it going or have it continue. So at the end of this lecture, I want to take a second to talk about how to design a good evaluation question, because this really is what you have to do for this week in class. Remember, part of your discussion assignment is to be able to put up there for your colleagues to review and critique an outline of what your program evaluation is going to be for the fictitious program that you develop. So before you come up with a program evaluation design, you have to have a question that you're asking, and the question that you ask has to be based on what type of evaluation you want to do and why you want to do it. So, in order to design a good evaluation question, you've got to determine the type of evaluation you wish to conduct. The evaluation must always, whether it's fictitious for the purposes of this class or it's real for the purposes of any job that you may do now or in the future, the question that you ask must be reasonable and it must be appropriate. It makes no sense to evaluate a drug treatment program and to talk about basically outlining the use of drugs. That's not a question that you would ask for a program evaluation. That's more of an esoteric sort of intellectual question that we can certainly debate, but that's not a question that's reasonable. Asking a reasonable question as it relates to, say, a drug treatment program, outpatient drug treatment program, might be, does this outpatient drug treatment program effectively mitigate the use of drug use in first-time drug offenders? That would be a reasonable and appropriate question to ask given the program under study. Here's a novel one. Once you ask the question, it should be answerable. If the question you ask is not answerable by the data that you're going to be able to collect from your evaluation, then it makes absolutely no sense to ask the question in the first place. And third, and probably, well, maybe not most importantly, but certainly of importance, is that you have in the question that you ask and in the evaluation that you do, you must represent the interests of the stakeholders. You must absolutely be cognizant of what those stakeholders need, what they want, and what they hope to get out of the evaluation that you do. So, take the information that I've just talked about, think about it, read the chapter, and look at what the assignment is, the discussion assignment is for week 1, and take all this information and try to encapsulate it into a rather concise explanation of what kind of program you're going to evaluate, what your question is, why you're doing it, and why it's important. And I'll come back in week 3 and we'll talk a little bit more about some other issues.